The neon-soaked alleyways of Station Kepler 442 weren't known for their hospitality. Between the cargo haulers and the mercenary guilds, most species gave the rusted maintenance sectors a wide berth. But Skylar had never been most people. She wiped the grease from her hands onto her coveralls, the universal translator in her ear crackling with the usual station chatter. Another 14-hour shift at Chen's orbital mechanics, another day of keeping broken ships flying. The smell of synthetic oil and recycled air had become her perfume. The clang of metal on metal her lullaby. As she locked up the shop's rear entrance, something small and scaled caught her eye. A dragon hatchling no bigger than a terrier sat huddled between two trash compactors. Its iridescent scales, which should have shimmered with pride, were dull and flecked with grime. One wing hung at an odd angle, and its golden eyes tracked her movements with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. "Well, damn," Skylar muttered. The Draconers were among the galaxy's oldest species, their empire spanning 12 systems. They were warriors, diplomats, scholars, never beggars. Seeing one of their young in such a state twisted something in Skylar's chest. The hatchling made a soft chirping sound, then pushed forward a dented can with its snout. The universal gesture was unmistakable. "Please, do you have food?" Skylar crouched down, moving slowly. "Hey there, little one. You're a long way from the Draconer's quarter." The hatchling's eyes widened at her accent. Humans were rare this far out in the Terminus sector. It chittered nervously, then resumed its pleading stance. She reached into her pack and pulled out her dinner, a protein bar, some dried fruit, and a thermos of soup she'd been saving. Without hesitation, she unwrapped the bar and held it out. The hatchling snatched it with surprising gentleness, swallowing it whole. Then it looked up at her again, and Skylar saw something that made her decision easy. She poured the soup into the can and set down the rest of her meal. "It's all yours, kid." As the hatchling ate with ravenous desperation, Skylar noticed the wing more closely. Broken, but recent, and those scorch marks on its tail. Someone had hurt this creature deliberately. Skylar Chen. She turned to find a Draconis adult standing at the alley's entrance. This one was massive, icily 3 meters tall when upright, scales gleaming like polished obsidian. Military bearing, danger. "That depends on who's asking," Skylar replied, positioning herself between the adult and the hatchling. "I am Warlord Jathir of the 3rd Talon Fleet." The dragon's voice rumbled through the translator. "That hatchling is property of the Crimson Clutch. You will step aside." "Property?" Skylar's jaw tightened. "You mean this scared, injured kid you people threw out like garbage?" Jathir's eyes narrowed. "You know nothing of our ways, human. The weak are cold. That one's wing will never fly true. It has no value. No value." Skylar let out a bitter laugh. "You know what I think has no value? A species that abandons their young because they're not perfect." The warlord took a step forward. "You dare?" "Yeah, I dare." Skylar stood her ground despite the size difference. "This is human territory, warlord. Station regs say abandoned sentients fall under salvage law, and I just claimed salvage." For a long moment, Jathir stared at her. Then, surprisingly, he laughed a sound like grinding stone. "Salvage law. Clever, mechanic, but that hatchling will die. Without a clutch's protection, without proper training, it will never survive. Then I'll teach it to survive Impossible. Your species lacks, we lack what? Honor, strength." Skylar's voice rose. "Let me tell you something about humans. We're the species that climbed out of caves and built starships. We survived ice ages, plagues, and our own stupidity. We don't abandon our own, and we sure as hell don't abandon kids just because they're broken." Behind her, the hatchling had finished eating and was watching the exchange with wide eyes. Jathir studied her for a long moment. "If you take responsibility for that hatchling, it will never be accepted by the Dracon. It will be an outcast, reviled, and it'll fit right in with me." The warlord's expression was unreadable. Finally, he reached into his armor and produced a small data chip. "This contains the hatchling's genetic profile and medical needs. If you are serious about this madness, you will need it." Skylar caught the chip, surprised. "Why are you helping?" "Because I, too, was once deemed worthless." Jathir touched a scar across his jaw. "A human scientist saved me from execution. She saw potential where my clutch saw only shame. Her name was Dr. Maria Chen." Skylar's breath caught. "That was my grandmother. Then perhaps the universe has a sense of symmetry." Jathir bowed his head slightly. "Raise the hatchling well, Skylar Chen. Prove me wrong about my own species." As the warlord disappeared into the station's crowds, Skylar turned back to the hatchling. It chirped questioningly, its injured wing twitching. "All right, kid. First things first, we're getting that wing looked at." Then we need to find you a name. The hatchling chirped again and took a hesitant step toward her. And tomorrow, I'm teaching you the most important human skill, how to fix broken things. 6 months later, Xavier pushed through the doors of Chen's orbital mechanics and stopped dead in his tracks. He'd heard the rumors that the human mechanic had adopted a draconis hatchling, that she was performing some kind of mad experiment in interspecies cooperation. But seeing it was different. The hatchling, easily twice its original size, now was wearing miniature safety goggles and wielding a plasma torch with surprising precision. Its once broken wing, now supported by an elegant mechanical brace, flexed as it worked on a ship's thruster assembly. Skylar stood beside it, guiding its movements with hand signals and encouraging words. That's it, Ember, nice and steady. Feel the metal, don't force it. The hatchling, Ember chirped happily and completed the weld with textbook precision. Xavier found his voice. I came to hire a mechanic for my freighter, but I think I just found two. Skylar grinned, grease smeared across her cheek. We're a package deal. Ember's been learning fast. Turns out dragons have an instinct for working with fire and metal, who knew? Ember chirped and raised its torch in what Xavier could only interpret as a greeting. Well, Xavier said, shaking his head in amazement, I guess humans really can't resist fixing broken things. Not broken, Skylar corrected, placing a hand on Ember's scaled head, just different, and that's exactly what makes us strong. As Ember returned to work with fierce concentration, Xavier smiled. The galaxy had a lot to learn about humanity, he thought, and apparently, humanity had a lot to teach, even to dragons. The end.